Welcome to Barchart's series of educational webinars designed to help you better understand a variety of trading strategies and concepts, as well as the pages and tools Barchart provides to help you to make a more informed investment decision. Today's session, mastering the eMACD screener and identifying trend reversals and breakouts. Oops. Barchart's investment ideal page, the eMACD buy signal, uses a moving average convergence divergence oscillator, or commonly referred to as the MACD, to identify those equities whose price movement is exhibiting positive price momentum. The MACD is a variation of a popular trend following strategy known as the moving average crossover. And this momentum indicator is a variance between two exponential moving averages. A buy signal is, two moving averages, and a buy signal is generated when the MACD line, which is a value of the difference between the two moving averages, crosses from below to above the MACD signal line, which is an average of the difference of the two moving averages. And then applied in the right context, the eMACD buy signal can alert traders of the potential trend changes or a continuation of a well-established trend that has paused and is about to impulse ahead. Hello, everyone. My name is John Rowland, Barchart's head of trading education, and today we're going to dive into the principles of the eMACD oscillator. Now, how can it be effective in enhancing potential trading opportunities, be it identifying these changes in character as markets move from a downtrend to an uptrend, as well as times when our uptrend has paused to gather energy and is poised to thrust ahead on some positive price momentum. Now, before we get to all that, please welcome my partner and Barchart's project director, Jean Baker. Hello, Jean.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And yourself?
I'm doing great, thank you. Very busy over here in Barchart land.
In Barchart land, huh?
Oh yeah, very busy.
Busier than a one-arm wallpaper hanger?
That explains it very accurately, yeah. So tell us all about eMACD today.
It's the eMACD, yes, exactly. Let's get into it then.
Okay.
All right, so just to remind you that today is for educational purposes only, and decisions to buy, sell, or hold or trade securities, commodities, or any other investment involves risk and investment made based on the advice of a qualified financial professional. And under no circumstances shall we be liable for any losses or damages you or anyone incurs as a result of any trading or investment activity that you or anyone else engages in based on the information or material you receive through Barchart and our services. Okay, so let's revisit here. I'm back on our investment ideal page. This is our eMAC buy signal page. Now, here's the definition at the top here. And you can see that this page is based on two EMAs, a 12 and 26 day. Now, what is an EMA, you ask? Well, it's a moving average that puts a greater importance, a weighting, on the latest input, an exponential moving average. And therefore, it makes it more sensitive to recent price activity. So exponential is the E in eMACD for us. Now, in a previous webinar, I went into a greater discussion based on not only the buy signals, but potential sell signals And there's a little bit more in-depth discussion of the many different applications of a MACD oscillator, and that would be this webinar here. So if you want a little bit more about what a MACD is about, I would recommend that you watch that video. Today, we're going to focus on just buy signals. So the other part here is, I'm going to take this little trader's advice right here. It says, here's a tip: open flip charts and apply the template containing the MACD oscillator exponential. And so that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to go to flip charts, and I'm going to right click, and there's studies, and I'm going to drag this down until I find the MACD oscillator exponential, not the regular one, and I'm going to click on that. And here you can see here's our default settings that are based on this oscillator. Our first period is our 12-day moving average. Our second period is our 26, and then our third period is a smoothing of the differential between the 12 and the 26 over a 9 period. And then you can see how these are color coded. The gray line represents our MACD line. The pink is going to be our signal line. And then we're going to talk about the histogram. So now I'm going to add that to my flip charts. And then up here where it says templates, if I'm satisfied with this template, what I can do is click on here and create a new template, so that every time I come to the page, or every time I use this this particular page, I can have this template available for me. And that's what I did here, where it says eMACD signal, and that's exactly what I have. Okay. So again, I'm more of a visual learner, so I kind of wanted just to go through the process, or the kind of the statistics or math behind a MACD. So what do we see here? Well, first of all, we have a gray line. And this gray line is that difference between our 12 and 26 exponential moving average. Now, this line oscillates above and below something called the zero line, which is right here in the middle. Now, when it's below the zero line, this means that the price action over the last 12 days, or the moving average of the last 12 days, is less than the moving average of the last 26 days. And this is a market that is exhibiting a downtrend. Now, when it's above the zero value, then the last 12 periods are greater than the previous 26 periods, and this is exhibiting an uptrend. So above and below the zero line can tell us if we're in a down or an uptrend. The pink line is called our MACD signal line, and this is at 9-day EMA of the difference between the 12 and the 26 EMAs. Now, a buy signal is generated when our more sensitive gray line crosses from below to above the pink line, this smooth signal line. Now, we'll also have something called a histogram. Now, the histogram is a graphic representation of the difference between our MACD line and our signal line. And again, just as I talked about the gray line, a blue histogram is telling us that, the blue line is telling us that above the zero value that our market is trending up. And the brown below is that our market is trending lower. In other words, the momentum of the market. Now, the histogram can also alert us of potential price momentum because of this MACD, and sometimes it will be in advance of what the signal and MACD lines can confirm for us. In other words, we might see a positive price momentum before we get the confirmation that we're in an uptrend. And that's typically when both our signal line and our MACD is above the 0 line. So in other words, this graphic representation of price momentum, these bars, the larger the bars, the greater the momentum, and the smaller the bars or diminishing bars, the slowing or decrease in momentum. So my game plan for today is kind of twofold. First, I want to show you how to use the MACD screener to identify those candidates that have established an uptrend but might have paused, consolidated, and the eMACD buy signal is predicting a potential breakout or in the process of a breakout. And then the second part of our session today, which is a little bit more complex, is how to identify those candidates that have recently been in downtrends, yet the eMACD buy signal could be locating a characteristic change in price action, a characteristic change in trends as we move from a downtrend to an uptrend. So let's start with the former because that's going to be a little bit easier. So let's go back to our main page. So what we're thinking about now is we're going to look for those candidates where we have an established uptrend and price has paused and is ready to break out. So like at all of our data pages, there are different ways we can view it. This is our main default page, but we also have some other ways that we can look at the candidates that the screener is pulling up for us. So we can talk about technicals. One of the things that we could do to help us find those technical elements as it pulls it up. Let me do this, Gene. Let me reset it. There we go. I might look for the Barchart opinion, which it represents 13 technical indicators, and concentrate on those ones that not only have buys, but maybe a high percentage. Or maybe I might look for those that have, a relatively strong relative strength index. Again, I might also look at average volume. I might look at how much volume is occurring today and see how that relates to our average volume. Obviously, if we see a large amount of volume over our average volume, that could confirm our price action. The other thing we can do is we can do by performance. Again, maybe just sorting based on how well this individual stock has done over a certain period of time, be it the year to date. We could sort by year to date, or percentage change in the last month, or the last 3 months, or the last 52 weeks. And, again, I'm probably going to say that we'll probably want to look at maybe a shorter time frame, let's say in the last month, and look for those that are performing well, because we're probably in a good uptrend. And you can see a couple of the candidates here. Another aspect of the screener is the mini charts. Now, the mini charts is a feature that is for Premier and Plus subscribers. And what's nice about this one is it gives me a little chart here that I can quickly look at. And what I might start to look for is, again, I want to find those stocks that look like price has kind of paused, it's gone kind of sideways, and is now about to break out, or it's kind of paused and looks like it's about to break out. So there are several candidates that fit this category. So let's go back to our main view. So that's kind of how we go through the view, but let's use this page here. So again, what I could do is look at sort by volume and see, look if I see a high volume day related to my moving average volume. But one of the easier ways I think to do this, to look for candidates, is I'm going to look at 52-week highs. and number of 52-week highs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort by this. And these are all the ones that have a lot of 52-week highs. I mean, in other words, it is trending higher, right? What's an uptrend? An uptrend is a series of higher lows and higher highs. And every time it makes a new high, right, it makes a new number on this 52-week list, as long as it's above the previous 52-week high. So you can see a few candidates that would fall under this category. Now, I'm looking at a couple of these this morning, and again, they change based on the percentage wise, or change. Some of them that were here this morning are not there here today, this afternoon. But what we can do is go back into our flip charts, turn on our eMAC, and what I'm going to do is quickly kind of scan through a lot of these different stocks based on what I'm going to be looking for. Is, again, I want to start looking for that sideways action in an uptrend as the market is about to break out. So I'm not familiar with this company. I'm not, this looks like an ADR. I mean, here's TJ Maxx. I mean, this one just popped in. Excuse me, that is not TJ Maxx. This is TJ Maxx. This one just popped in. This is kind of a breakout. It's already happening. So what we want to now do is look at our MACD and see what it is telling us. And again, notice that we're getting this crossover in our oscillator. So let me go and look at a couple of the ones that popped up this morning that I did a little analysis on. So the first one here is Oric. This is a pharmaceutical company. And notice, again, if I'm looking at this in terms of a trend, right, we have, this kind of a uptrending cycle. And recently we have price has paused, and then what looks like we're trying to get a little bit of a breakout today. And again, notice how that our MACD, the crossovers, is identifying these areas after an impulse where price kind of just base and then consolidates and base and consolidates and shoots ahead. So again, another basing consolidation, and then now a breakout. Now, some of you might be familiar with a term called negative divergence, and there might be a consideration that I need to be aware of is my momentum here, in other words, as I'm making these higher highs, right, is my momentum stalling so much that as I make a new high, I'm not making a higher momentum movement, and that would be a negative divergence, and that would be a concern for me now. But I'm going to give you a little tip here in a second as we digest these charts. So let me look at another one here. That was on my list. Again, let me go back to our list here. It's amazing, how, Gene, how you prepare and then the market changes dramatically within list late hours. Yeah, so all three of the ones I looked at this morning are gone. Well, that's trading for you, for sure. Okay, so let's just improvise like a Marine. So let's look at these couple of ones that are here right up front. I apologize about that, folks. I can't do anything about what the market is doing, but certainly I can try to update what is going on currently. So here's another one. What we're talking about is, we have this uptrending pause, and now we're having a breakout. And let's look at our eMACD signal. Again, here is that crossover. So one of the things that we can kind of do to help us find better candidates is I'm going to go to the chart of the company, the individual company, and I'm going to open up something that's called, I'm going to turn this off first, and then I'm going to open it up. Something that's called our grid view. And again, this is a feature that is for Plus and Premium members. And this allows me to look at multiple time frames. In this case, what I've done is I've done a daily and on a 6-month period, and I'm using a weekly over a 1-year period. Now remember that our page is sorted based on the daily time frame, our daily moving averages. So again, here we can see that a crossover, and there will be some folks who might say, hey, this might be a negative divergence because we're making a new high, and we're not making a new high in the momentum. And to the point, that is exactly what that means. But we have to give a little bit of leeway. What we might be seeing here is this sideways action is that gathering of energy, and now we're seeing that release of energy. So one of the caveats that we can use is let's look at the higher time frame. In this case, we're looking at the weeklies. And what I want to see is my weekly MACD in support of the signal, that the buy signal that I'm getting in the current daily. And yes, we can see that our weeklies is trending higher. Our weekly momentum is still very strong, and we're in the histogram is in blue, and both our signal line and our MACD line is above the 0 line. This is a sign of that at the weekly level we are still trending higher. So what we could do is discount that negative divergence because we're getting support from our weekly time frame. So let's go to another way we can sort out potential candidates. And this might help us a little bit as well. So I'm going to go in here where it says screener. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen on this signal. And I can add some technical analysis that I believe that would be more conducive to finding stocks that are, in this uptrend, and then I can save those characteristics. So that's what I did here. Is I created eMAC one for our webinar, and these are just very simple things. Again, you might have your own determination of what you believe is defines an uptrend for you, and you might have your favorite technical analysis. So in this one here, what I'm doing is I'm looking at, first of all, is the 20 versus the 100-day moving average. Again, a variation of a trend following system. And I kind of believe that if I have a 20-day moving average above my 100-day moving average, there's a good possibility or a good probability that that trend is still moving higher. There's our made a new eMACD signal today. And then here I'm using a percentage from our monthly high. Again, I'm just want to see that I'm getting closer to a monthly high. Now, what I might do is I might add another level. Maybe I'll come in here and say, let's look and see if I'm making a new high today. So I'm going to do a new high date based on that was made within the last session. In other words, today. And let's see what we get from our screener. So again, here we see a few different candidates that weren't on the list that I just showed you, and because we're using some different parameters. And the one that was, well, these two that were on my list this morning here's Ross. This is Ross Stores. And again, notice that here we have kind of been in an uptrend and we're getting ready to break out. And if we look at our MACD, right? We're getting that not necessarily a negative diversion, we're just kind of getting slow in momentum, right? Our market has kind of gone sideways, gathering energy, and now we get this nice breakout. We could check volume on this and see if this is a good follow through, and we're getting a nice signal here. Again, what I might do is I go into Ross, the stock itself, and look at my grid. And yeah, again, here's that crossover, and am I getting support from my weekly level? So this is a way how we can define these breakouts, and then using some of these other screeners to help us say, hey, yeah, these ones have good positive momentum, and now it looks like they're ready to start accelerating again, using a higher time frame to support our buying or our buy signal. All right, so that's kind of the upside. Let's look at looking for those that have a bottom. So let me go back to our investing page, our eMACD buy, and we could maybe do the same process in reverse. Maybe we could say, hey, let's look at those that have, not a lot of highs, or maybe a very far distance from, your 52-week high, or maybe close to your 52-week low. And, I looked at a lot of candidates this morning, and again, none of them were really exhibiting this characteristic that I want to kind of show you of a change in price action, or a bottoming price action as we transition from a downtrend to an uptrend. The only one that kind of came close was this Casella Waste Management Company, and let's look at that. And you can kind of see it here. We can see that we've been in this downtrend, and now the market's kind of bottoming here, and we've had a nice little uptick in our candles. And again, if I put my MACD on here, notice we're getting a crossover, right? We're still in the negative, right? We still haven't confirmed, a positive trend, but we're starting to see that momentum pick up. And again, if I look at this in terms of a grid, where my weekly has yet to confirm what I'm seeing here. So maybe not a great candidate. But let's look at a market that maybe you are familiar with. And I want to kind of walk through this idea of what is a change in character, what we need to look for, and how we can use the MACD in terms of something called positive divergence to help us find some trading opportunities. So let's do this. Let's blow up Google, and I know everybody knows Google, and let's do this. Okay. So here we see Google, and it's pretty obvious to us that Google in here is in a downtrend. And since from this point here, we can see that price was steadily moving lower. And you can see that both of our lines, our signal line and our MACD line, are below the zero, which is telling us that this market is exhibiting a downward trend. And then we make this low here, and sometime after that, we get a little bit of a crossover and a little bit of a momentum change, right? Positive momentum change. But if we think about the characteristics of a downtrend is what? A series of higher lows and, lower highs and lower lows. So we're still in a downtrend. Now we made a new lower high, and then what do we see? We make a new low, but this low is higher. So what we're starting to see is a change in characteristics in the market. In other words, what are the characteristics of an uptrend? Well, an uptrend is a series of higher lows and higher highs. But at this point, all we've done is made a higher low. Now we make a higher high. Now, one higher low and one higher high does not necessarily mean that we have an uptrend. It just means that we're starting to see a change in the characteristics of what this market has been doing. And then we make a new higher low. So now we're starting to see those characteristics of a potential uptrend. During the process, notice that the lows that we've made, these three lows, is where our MACD has crossed. Again, that eMACD signal. So this is giving us that confirmation that there is this change into a positive momentum. And also notice now that each of these troughs in our MACDs are a lot less than the previous trough as we're making these lows. This is kind of a positive divergence. We're seeing positive market momentum, and each one of those lows we're not getting as troughy. Now we come to, again, this low right here, where we've had our change in character, right? We've made a new high, we've made two higher lows, and now we get that change in momentum, that positive momentum shift. This is the right where we want to start looking for these kinds of conditions, right? Now the market rallies higher. Some of you might say, hey, I might not be comfortable buying here because I really haven't really defined a new uptrend. I really would like to see a new higher high. But the MACD has already given us that confirmation. Maybe what you would do in this point here is you would wait until your MACD line moves from the negative to the positive. In other words, now the last 12 days, you're starting to see a positive price momentum. And you can see that that was approximately right here on this green candle here, which was the green candle that took out all these very close and recent lower highs. Now the market rallies up, it pauses, gathers energy, and what we would call a bullish consolidation. Some of you might be knows this as a bull flag or an ascending wedge. There's a lot of different names. Again, what is our MACD doing? Well, our MACD here, our momentum has waned a bit, right? But then we get that positive momentum shift where we cross back over and our momentum histogram is accelerating. Now we're seeing a greater momentum. But notice that this time, what's the difference from this low and this breakout? Well, both of our signal line and our MACD line are now in the positive. That confirmation that we are trending higher. And again, another consolidation where price kind of drifts lower. Did we make a new low? No, we held, recent support. And then again, we get this kind of this crossover momentum shift, right? And then we get another impulse up. Now, what's the difference between what's going on now with Google versus what we saw back here and back here is, yes, we've made that higher high, right? But our MACD didn't make a higher high as well. This would be called negative divergence. And again, if you watch the other video, we go a lot more in depth in this. And this could be an indication of us that our trend is not only losing momentum, but this could also be an indication that we're about to see a reversal in price action, this negative divergence. Again, what could I do? Well, if I'm not 100% sure, I could use my grid analysis. And again, here's my notice that in those lows, those crossovers that we had on those lows on our dailies, right? And at that time, when we had those crossovers, what was our weekly? Where our weekly was already in an uptrend. Our weekly was already in positive momentum. So that was supportive to these. What do we see now? Right, we had a little bit of a MACD crossover a couple days ago, and now it's actually crossed back the other way. But what is our momentum of our weekly? Hasn't crossed over, hasn't really given us a a real true negative divergence, but certainly our momentum is not supportive to our buy signal. So that would be a cautionary tale for us. So that's Google. So let me go to ADX. This is an Autodesk. Some of you might be familiar with this. Again, let me turn off this grid for a second. I want to go back to the chart. And I want to really hone this in for you, this idea of positive divergence and this change of character. So again, notice here we see that we're in a downtrend, and this is our lowest low or our last low or our deepest low. But notice that as we are making these lows here, as the market was trending lower, what was our MACD doing, right? Our MACD was actually trending slightly higher. This is that that positive divergence. That is telling us that there's a shift in momentum. So now we just need to wait for that change in characteristics, right? We want to see, a higher low and then a new higher, a higher high and then a new higher low. Now we did get a bit of what would be considered a higher high, but in the big picture, we really didn't get above some of these previous highs, but we certainly took these out, and then we made, a higher low. So we are starting seeing the characteristics of an uptrend. But let's look at this as we move forward. What we're really seeing here is this market is trying to do two things at the same time, right? It's still making lower highs and it is making higher lows. But what is our MACD doing, right? Our MACD is still trending in the positive direction. In other words, we're still seeing overall positive momentum in our MACD. So let's go down again. Let's change this to So again, I'm seeing a change in characteristics, higher lows. I still haven't gotten that higher high that confirms my uptrend. So what I need to do is probably be a little bit patient here, right? I need to probably wait for us to take out one of these lower highs, either maybe this one or one of these two here, or maybe just this most recent price action where we're getting that change in momentum, right? So again, I'm not ready to commit to this trade in terms of a buy signal, but the MACD is kind of hinting to us that there's something afoot. Again, let's look at our multiple time frame analysis, right? What we might wait for now is let's wait for our histogram to grow, right? That would be a greater confirmation. Maybe take out this high. That would be a greater confirmation. What's our weekly MACD doing? Well, it's slightly supportive, isn't it, right? It is in a positive histogram. And although the momentum has slowed a little bit, it's still kind of hanging in there. So again, what we need for this one to buy this stock is we've got the permission to start investigating the stock, but maybe we need to wait a little time until we take out this high or maybe this weekly high or this weekly high as our histograms turn more positive. Let's do one more because this is a little combination of both. So here is T-Mobile. Some of you might be familiar with that stock. And again, let me blow this out so it's a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to turn off the grid. And here is our crossover. Again, our MACD crossover, where we're seeing a change or a positive price momentum, although both of our lines are still in the negative, which means that we're still having the characteristics of a downtrend. But let's see what happened prior to the crossover. Again, think about what defines an uptrend. An uptrend is a series of higher lows and higher highs. And what is a downtrend? A downtrend is lower lows and lower highs. So what are we seeing right here? Well, we made a new low But then from that moment on, we started making higher lows, and the crossover was a higher high. So are we seeing a change in the characteristics of our trend? Yeah, we are. So then what we would do is we could either take this trade as is, maybe risk this low, or what I can do is wait for some greater confirmation. In other words, maybe I'll wait for my MACD line to get into the positive. In other words, telling me now I have the characteristics of an uptrend, which would be around here. Now, what will we see? Well, our price has gone sideways for a while. We did make a new higher low, so that's good. We did make a new higher high. That's good. Now we're getting that positive momentum again. So would we take this trade at this moment in time? Maybe we still would want to wait until our histogram confirms getting back into that positive momentum. And also, do I see that confirmation from my higher time frame? What I notice here on the weekly for T-Mobile is, yes, we have a positive histogram, but we're still in the negative for the weekly. So in this case, what we see is a transitioning market, but we still don't have that confirmation. Probably a stronger higher high would be a greater confirmation, and maybe we might want to wait at a weekly level for our signal line and our MACD line to cross above the zero. But no, again, notice back where we were, where we had the crossover on our daily, where we had that change in characteristics, right? Those higher highs, lows, as we made a new higher high, we see the same thing at the weekly level, but the weekly was not confirming the action that we saw on the daily. So again, a little bit more patience on this example. Okay, so let me do this, Gene. I'm on schedule here. I do want to do a couple more examples, but I do see a couple questions that you've sent through to me, and I'm kind of reading them as I go here. So let me take a second to digest those, okay?
Sure, and while you do that, John, let me take a second to let everybody know a little bit about Barchart and our membership packages. We actually have 3 different levels of membership. What John is showing you today, he started off on the investing section of the site with a number of pages where we highlight the eMACD buy signals. I mean, those are available for anyone visiting the site to take a look at. But if, for instance, if you want to do any kind of custom views or advanced screening on those symbols, even adding and setting up custom chart templates to look for the eMACD on your charts, I suggest you take a look at our membership packages. We have a free membership where you can create 1 chart template, 1 custom view, but our Barchart Plus and Premier memberships give you far superior screening capabilities. You can have multiple templates, multiple custom views, and that way you'll be able to really better understand this signal that John's been teaching you today.
Okay, thanks, Gene. Yeah, there's been some changes in our subscriptions, and certainly there are some advantages to some of the higher level of subscriptions. All right, so let's go back to one of the questions here is, does the eMACD signal work the same for ETFs? Well, I think ETFs you can think of, remember it's a basket of stocks, and maybe you might see a little bit of a slower price movement, maybe not as volatile or as actionable as we see in a single stock, but certainly we can look at ETFs and apply the same concepts. So I just happened to have been doing a little analysis on the consumer discretion. Actually, I was in the, yes, it's consumer discretion. And what I noticed was that in recent weeks, this is one of the better performing sectors currently, right? It's actually overtaken since our March low. It's overtaken the the technology sector. But again, let's kind of look at this from that perspective. I don't know what is going to happen because this is a new question. But what I do see here is, right, again, notice here we see our downtrend, that is our low, right? And then what is our change in characteristics, right? There is our momentum change. Now this is back in January. There's our momentum change. Then we made a new higher high. We need a new higher low, right? There's our confirmation of our trend. And then we got another crossover right around March of this year. Now, what I noticed right away is, could have this been an actual trade? Could this have been an opportunity to jump in right here? Now, that would be a tough call to make, but notice that this turn in the daily, and I think this is Theodore that's asking this, Theodore, the importance of multiple time frame analysis, there's our weekly, and notice that our crossover came somewhere between the week of January 9th and January 16th, right? Somewhere's right in here. So could you have taken this buy signal as our histogram went to the positive, as our MACD line, around what looks like here January 17th, as our MACD line got into the positive levels, could you have taken this trade? Well, what was going on with our momentum here? We had our crossover, we had positive momentum. And so that was a supportive higher time frame. Now, it wasn't until about May did we get the MACD line of the weekly gets into the positive, and I'm going to think that this is going to correspond pretty close to our breakout right in there. So that would have been a great, again, another confirmation as we're coming into a breakout where price had what? Paused and then is starting to pick up acceleration. Again, I think there's a little bit of a crossover there. So Theodore, yes, the technique still works for ETFs. It's just there's a little bit more lag. It's a little bit less sensitive because we're not talking about a single stock, we're talking about a group of stocks, but you can definitely see that it works. Now, Wayne asks, what's the importance of the gray line over the purple line? It's just, again, it's just this variance between the two moving averages, Wayne. Obviously, as the gray line deviates or diverges away from the purple line, that is a sign of a strengthening of price action. That is what we're really looking at, that momentum. So the significance is, as it diverges away, your price action is strengthening, and as it comes together, your price action is weakening. So Sam says it's a good to enter the MACD crossover is above the zero line. Yes, well, what is that telling us, Sam? If I'm waiting for these crossovers and I'm above the zero line, then I know that that stock is in an uptrend, right? Because it's exhibiting this positive price momentum. The difficult part is finding that change of characteristics where we're still below both of our daily and maybe our weekly, but now we're getting that positive price momentum, right? That's the more difficult, that's the more risky, right? That's where you need proper risk management. And every trader is a little bit different. I just want to give you, maybe the more conservative, which was wait for the crossover to come after we have confirmed a trend, or the more aggressive, looking for that change in characteristics. So there's another way what we could do. Let me go back to T-Mobile for a second. And we can look at some supporting technical analysis as well. And there are different ones that you can use. And again, it depends on the trader. But let's say let's look at something for instance, um, relative strength is a nice companion to the MACD. It's a little bit more leading indicator, even though it's a lagging data than our MACD. Here we can see on our T-Mobile, remember where we said, hey, we're seeing that supportive at a higher time frame, but maybe we are seeing that negative divergence. We wanted to wait for a little bit more positive confirmation. But here we can see in our MACDs, and then we related to what was going on in our RSI, that our change in characteristic, there it was right there, came at a time when the market would be conceived as a oversold, right? The RSI is in an oversold. And then we got that MACD crossover. Again, RSIs tend to be a little bit more of a leading indicator. And then you would wait for, again, that positive RSI price movement with our positive price momentum. You can see that right about there. The other thing you'll notice when you're in a bull trend or if you're in an uptrending market is when we're looking at RSI movements, many times when you have a little bit of a correction in the RSIs, it will hold the 40 level. That's a good sign. That's usually a characteristic of a bull market. If you're in a bear market, you're probably going to go back down to the oversold. And then once price gets back above the 50 line, that would be a confirmation that you're getting that greater momentum. So again, now we're back above the 50, and now we need to wait for our histogram to grow. Now let's look at this from our higher time frame perspective. Again, right, where did we see that change of character on our RSI? That's where we kind of held that 40, right? We've been in an uptrend. We kind of just gone sideways for a while. And then now, what are we waiting for? Well, again, I'm waiting for the RSI to get above 50, waiting for us. It looks like to me, we've got the permission, we've got the buy signal, but now we need that confirmation. So probably, in the case of T-Mobile, maybe back, once we get clear to the 141 level would be, you'd probably get that RSI above and you would see a rising histogram. Okay. I hope you guys like that session today. So let's do this. I'm going to give you a couple of takeaways. So first of all, I had a couple screeners that I showed today. I don't know if I showed both of them, but they are. So these are kind of just jumping off points for you. This one is one that you can use for using that change of characteristics. I didn't know if I demonstrated this one. But what we're doing here is we're going to use two different values. We're going to look at a low based on a monthly low, and we're going to look at a low basis a 6-month low. And what we want to do here is what we're looking for is that change in characteristics. We want to see that the monthly low, our current price is above our monthly low, and we want to kind of see that monthly low above our 6-month low. So what we want to see is the two of them. So let me see if I can do that real quick. Let's go back to our stock screener, and here's our new buy signal. And what I see here is, and this is what you want to look for. Notice how that the 6-month low here and the 1-month low are the same. That means that this particular stock here they're making a bottom, right? They're both at the same value. What we want to look for is where we've bounced off a bottom, and now we've bounced off near-term low. So looks like Ryanair and Saga Communications would be good examples of that, and even this Hexcel. So let's just look at those charts real quickly. So here's Hexcel, and this is what we're kind of looking for, right? Here's our 6-month low, here's our month low. That is kind of showing us that change in characteristic. Here's that Ryanair, again, right? Here's our 6-month low over here. Here's our month low, right? Still, this market is still in an uptrend, but here's that change in characteristics, right? In here, we're waiting for that breakout, and then here's our Saga again, right? Downtrend, 6-month low. Now here's our month low. We're making a higher low and probably waiting for some kind of a breakout signal. Okay. So those two slides are in there. They're just kind of jumping off points for you. So what are some of our takeaways? Well, again, remember the oscillator is just a trend following momentum indicator, and it does help us in confirming upcoming price or trend changes. Remember that the buy signal occurs when the MACD line, the gray line, crosses from below to above. Again, maybe looking at a higher time frame for that supportive confirmation in terms of both of those MACDs doing the same thing. Positive divergence also helps enhance the MACD indicator. Right? Remember to look for that rising higher low in our MACD as our market is making a new low. And then the MACD alone is not an absolute indicator, right? This is just kind of gives us that permission to start collecting those candidates that we think are going to exhibit that positive price momentum. Now, there are some other techniques that we can use. I mentioned RSI. I talked briefly about volume, looking for large volumes as you're getting these changes in momentum. We talked a little bit about the change of characteristics in our trends. And again, those of you who are familiar with candlestick patterns, right? Those bullish engulfing patterns, those ones in concert with your MACD crossovers are a great way to enhance the MACD indicator. Okay, Gene, that takes us pretty much to the top of the hour. Listen, if I didn't get to all of your questions, go ahead, Gene.
No, can you do me a favor? I've had a couple people ask where these slides are. If you go to our Learn section and go to Archived Webinars. So today's session is already out there. The recording is going to show up here a little bit later on. Right there, John is showing where you can download those few slides that he just showed you. Okay?
Okay. And again, in our Learn section, you can find our archive. Again, the link is on the investment idea page for the previous MACD. I would recommend that you watch that one. But we also have upcoming webinars, and we don't have one currently on the page, but we do have one for next week. And so next week, we're going to look at bear call option spreads. And this is where you sell a call at closer to current price, and then you buy a call at a higher price, strike price. And this is a limited potential, limited risk trade, but it's a great little trade if you believe your market is in a downtrend or maybe in a side trend. And it's a nice little options strategy that helps you create income. So while you're waiting for the markets to get going or waiting for one of these buying opportunities that we just went through, you can do some of these bear call spreads while we're waiting for those opportunities. Okay, Gene, I think that's about where I want to go. I think this is kind of what you were mentioning about our Barchart Plus and Premier, where you can have a free 30-day trial. And again, I would recommend, if you like the way I demonstrate this, if you like using these added features, these advanced features, there's no harm and there's no risk to you as an investor to try one of these subscriptions out for a 30-day process. Will you agree with me on that one, Gene?
Absolutely, John. Give it a try.
All right. Thanks, Gene. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just said give it a try. I think you'll like it. Any questions, please send them to support@barchart.com.
Yeah, send those questions to support@barchart.com if we didn't get to all your questions. I apologize. All right, and so next time, be safe out there, the best of health, and the good of all trading.